Good afternoon, everybody. We will get today's meeting underway for the Climate and Energy Committee. We do have a quorum. First order of business is the meeting minutes from March 26th. Representative Kraft, have you had a chance to look at them?
I have, Madam Chair. Move their approval.
Great. Any discussion to the meeting minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion prevails and the minutes are adopted. We've got just two bills on the agenda today. First up is Representative Hollins with House File 4938. Uh-oh.
We're good.
Okay,
We're
good.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee members. I would move House File 4938 be laid over for consideration.
Great. And I see you also have an author's amendment coded to A1.
That's correct.
Representative Hollins moves the A1 to get the bill in the shape to discuss it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Representative Hollins, go ahead and tell us about your bill.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you, committee members. I am so pleased to present House File 4938, which is an RDA request to fund an anaerobic digester to process food waste in Minnesota. As you may note, the author's amendment clarifies the location of the digester and expands to allow waste from counties outside of the metro area and removes the funding specifics. We understand that $30 million from the RDA may not be possible to achieve this year. This is a large project with an overall price tag of $100 million, and we are grateful for any funding that this committee can provide to move us towards that goal. The timing of this project is absolutely critical. If we can get shovels in the ground this year, we unlock $30 million of federal tax credits that expire at the end of 2024. You'll see in your packet a number of letters of support from our partners in this effort, and I would like to cede the rest of my time to my testifiers.
Wonderful. Yeah. Welcome to committee. Ms. Reinhardt, go ahead and introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Victoria Reinhardt. I'm on the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners, and I'm here today on behalf of Ramsey County and the Ramsey Washington Recycling and Energy Board. This project is an exciting next step in a multi-year effort to get organics out of our landfills and move it up the waste management hierarchy. I have been known to get very excited about trash, and I really am excited about this because of what we can possibly do. The Recycling and Energy Board is the joint powers board of Washington and Ramsey counties, recently launched an innovative food scrap pickup program to ensure that all households in the two counties have the option to recycle their food scraps easily from home, and you'll have other testifiers that will go further into that. Organics, such as discarded food scraps, make up over 20% of our collected trash. It is imperative that we address this to both move towards Minnesota's 75% recycling goal and to reduce the greenhouse gases created by landfills. A key limiting factor has been the lack of sufficient infrastructure to process organics into beneficial products. Composting is the traditional method, but anaerobic digestion has the added benefit of producing biogas, which can be used to produce renewable natural gas. And I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Miron for his testimony.
Wonderful. Mr. Miron, Commissioner for Washington County, welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I am Commissioner Fran Miron here today on behalf of Washington County and the Recycling and Energy Board. The Recycling and Energy Board has entered into a 20-year contract agreement to provide organics to DEMCON, a facility for processing by anaerobic digestion. And we're committed to pursuing the next level in waste management and renewable energy production for Minnesota. Investment in this facility will produce 75,000 tons per year of new organics processing capacity in Minnesota. The facility will produce 170,000 decatherms, or 1.7 million therms, enough renewable natural gas to heat approximately 4,500 homes annually. This will result in a significant reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, almost 32,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide annually as compared to if food waste went to a landfill. This is an equivalent carbon emission avoided from 7,600 cars. I'm going to hand it over to Bill Keegan, who is, with your permission, Chair, who is a representative from DEMCON that's here to share some testimony as well. Thank you.
Commissioner. Up next is Bill Keegan, DEMCON Companies. Welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representatives. Bill Keegan, President of DEMCON Companies. I want to just briefly tell you a little bit about who DEMCON Companies is and then the technology that's being proposed as part of this private-public partnership, and really convey how we are at a unique time for Minnesota to manage our waste differently, right? And really have a paradigm shift here where we can leverage federal dollars and public-private partnerships and private investments to move us to the next level of waste management. DEMCON is a third-generation family-owned company. We're located down in Louisville Township, which is adjacent to Shakopee, Minnesota, southwest suburbs there. And we are in the waste processing, recycling, and disposal business. And something that's unique is we are a third-generation, initially a disposal company that embraces landfill diversion, right? Moving materials to higher and better uses. We have what we call our environmental campus in Shakopee. Maybe some of you have been there and seen it. But it includes processing of construction demolition materials, your materials that are curbside recyclables, processing of shingles, wood materials, metals, and others, and then hopefully soon to be processing food waste into renewable natural gas, which is this project. The project is for an anaerobic digester, and just to kind of simplify that to terms that make sense, I think, is thinking about it like your stomach. You put food in, and you get liquids, gases, and solids out. This is the way it works. And so the gases are renewable natural gas. The liquids get reincorporated back into the process, and the solids get turned into biochar through a biochar process, which is just high temperature. There is a slide on here that I can pull up, but in the interest of time, I want to show you what this looks like. Is that working? That's project location. That is what the anaerobic digester looks like. It's a fairly large facility, about 7 acres. That big bubble thing is where the renewable natural gas is stored, and it connects to the grid. The biochar that's produced can be used for soil amendments and can be used for remediation projects and also for carbon sequestration, right? It is a modular design, so it can be expanded as interest in programs grow. It's currently being built for 70,000 tons, 75,000 tons per year, and it can be expanded in 35,000 ton increments. The unique part about this is we can prove out this technology, and it could be replicated elsewhere in Minnesota. So it's really paving the way to move ourselves to a new way of managing waste. Finally, I guess it's important to convey that this is a critical time. We've got federal policy and local policy all converging at this time with the Inflation Reduction Act. There's a 30% tax credit for this project that you've heard mentioned today already. That is uniquely available, but the project has to start before the end of the year or that expires. So we lose on that opportunity as Minnesota to get $30 million of federal money here to help us move to this next level. In addition, we as DEMCON are putting up $40 million towards this project of private money. We also have our Natural Gas Innovation Act locally that is supporting this project, and you can see that from some of the letters of support in your packets. So finally, just in closing, I think this is a unique opportunity for Minnesota, and I appreciate your time and consideration of this testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan. Appreciate that. And before I turn it over to committee members to ask questions, I have one quick question, and that is if either Ramsey County or Washington County are putting any money into this project, and so I'd be interested to hear about their financial commitment to the project.
We have, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We have put in $41 million into the facility, our facility at the Recycling and Energy Center, and that is to basically the anaerobic digester, or the product that comes in. We are doing this, we're providing bags, 6-gallon or 13-gallon bags, on a voluntary basis. Right now, it's in 4 cities in the 2 counties, but it's going to go both counties wide. And you take your food scraps, you put them in there, you close it, it goes into the trash. We have robotic arms that pull it out, and we'll put it into this facility. And the enhancements there for the pulling out recyclables and the organics was $41 million.
Great, thank you. Commissioner, I see you're standing. Maybe do you want our other Washington commissioner welcome back to the table. Thanks for providing a little bit more information about that.
Madam Chair, Fran Miron again. If I may, we've also signed agreements with DEMCON for delivery of food scraps or food waste to support their business model. And with that, the counties, through the recycling and energy budget, will be providing tip fees at their location to cover costs associated with their operations. But specifically, what we're asking for here is capital investment, not necessarily operational costs, but the counties do have a commitment through the Recycling and Energy Board with DEMCON.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. First on the list for questions, Representative Hornstein.
Thanks so much, and Commissioner Reinhardt, I share your passion for proper disposal of municipal solid waste, and I'm very pleased that you're working on this. We had a hearing last week or 2 weeks ago in Environment on a PCA proposal on composting, which wasn't quite ready. We realized that. That's what hearings are about sometimes. You just throw an idea out there. But I really appreciate this because this is 1/3 of the waste stream. And as you pointed out, if we're going to get to the 75% by 2030, which is a bill I worked on in 2014, we're absolutely going to have to deal with food waste. There is one piece in the bill that is sort of like the waste management hierarchy for compost. And so at the beginning, it's reducing it, and then we have anaerobic digestion, towards the end. But my question is, you had talked about banning food waste from landfills, which I like a lot. I think it should also be banned from incinerators as well. But is this something that you feel the state should be looking at? I think that was part of, not the incinerator part, but the landfill part was, I think, part of Hennepin County's legislative agenda. Or do you feel that this can be done on a county-by-county basis? Because if it is statewide, then we should really be looking at it and having, all of that great coalition that's been coming together around SCORE, work on that type of bill. So interested in your thoughts.
Commissioner Reinhardt?
Thank you, Representative and Madam Chair. Well, first of all, as you know, the 75% recycling goal by 2030 is in the metro area. It's 35% outstate. As far as banning, there have been, over the years, with the Waste Management Act and the hierarchy, there have been a number of bans that have been put in place. But what you really need to do is to have opportunities to have it addressed in a different way. So I'm not sure, it shouldn't be in there. That's all there is to it, and we're doing what we can to take it out. But if you don't have, for example, if we don't have this system in place, we're not going to be able to get it done. And so what do we do with it? Well, we compost it right now. I mean, we don't put it in the landfills. But I think that it has to be both. Simply banning something, I don't think, is going to get you where you want to be, but you have to show some way of getting there as well. So personally, and I'm not speaking for Ramsey County or Recycling and Energy Board, but yeah, I don't think it should be allowed in the landfill. It's a negative, and if you are putting it into a processing facility, it's a negative BTU. I mean, we're actually trying to do something positive with it here. So I think moving things so that you can actually implement them is probably the most important thing.
Looks like Commissioner Myron had something he wanted to say as well before going back.
If I might just add, Madam Chair, Representative, processing municipal solid waste, recycling and doing the right thing is always more costly than landfilling. And I believe, at least in the case of Ramsey and Washington counties and the Recycling and Energy, which is a joint powers board that we created here a number of years ago to manage municipal solid waste, we are committed. And aside from creating more rules and regulations, incenting the work that we want to do, we think is the way to go. It's expensive to do, as I pointed out, but, providing those incentives, and in this case, the requests that we're making, we believe is going to help us get there. And we believe that we have the opportunity to set the example for the state of Minnesota in how to manage municipal solid waste. And we believe we've been doing that with the work that we've done already.
Representative Hornstein.
Just a quick follow-up, more of a statement than a question, but, I think folks know this, but it's worth repeating. To have organics, again, 1/3 of the waste stream in a landfill, this is where we get the methane, and which is the most potent greenhouse gas. So that's reason number one to get it out. Reason number two, if you're looking at an incinerator, it's not all wet waste, but most of it is, and it doesn't make sense to me to have that in that type of facility either. So, I think first we reduce the amount of organics that we have, and then there's a few other. Hopefully, we'll get this in the environment bill, but there's a few other things in the composting hierarchy that we're working on, but this is part of it. And so, hopefully, we at the state can figure out ways to fund and incent what you're trying to do.
Commissioner Myron, before we go on. to
Thank
the
you,
next-
Madam Chair, and Representative Hornstein. You mentioned the waste hierarchy, and the waste hierarchy is, as it's traditionally been. The Recycling and Energy Board fully supports that waste hierarchy and recognizes that we can add value to the waste beyond composting, and that is our goal here.
Next question to Representative Carroll.
Thank you, Chair. This question is for both testifiers. I'm from a school district that instituted organics recycling, in all levels of the school. My daughters went through that, and it made a big impact on them, and they were good educators for their parents in terms of waste reduction and recycling. So my question is, have you considered that as a source, from the schools?
Commissioner Reinhardt, are you working your way to the stretch?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative. Yes, we do need to, there's unfortunately a lot of organic waste that is out there. So absolutely, we would be working with the entities that are producing it in the programs. Composting, that's a great thing to do with it, but we can do more. And so I think that's also an educational opportunity for especially younger folks who are trying to do things better than we did. And I do remember, actually, when recycling, I go way back, but it was, honestly, when we started to do the education at the school level, that's when we got the parents involved.
Commissioner Myron, did you have?
Yeah, I would just add, Commissioner Reinhardt and I are of the same vintage. And, my early learning with respect to environmental responsibility came at the high school level. And so I appreciate what I'm hearing from you. It's still going on, and I think that's important that our schools are doing that. The food scrap pickup program that we have right now is currently available to residential waste collection. Our goal is to expand that program throughout both counties so that it's available to everyone. Right now, it's only available to some of the cities that haul directly to our facility in Newport, which is in the southern part of Washington County. But eventually, that will roll out to all residential property owners, properties within Washington and Ramsey County. And then our goal is to expand that into other areas and hopefully schools.
And I will just maybe say about the question regarding schools, I think my kids, their school partnered with a hog farmer, and all the food scraps went to the hog farmer. So sounds like there'll be competition for school food scraps.
Well,
Representative Carroll, did you have a follow-up?
It's low-hanging fruit, so I'd encourage you to go after it.
Yeah. Next on the list is Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think this is great. One of as I've looked into this stuff in the past, one of the potential concerns is in how a plant like this is operated, because you are generating methane in a much more renewable way, and in certain instances, methane has been flared from plants like this that can reduce some of a lot of the benefit. So how are you putting in place process that that kind of thing doesn't happen?
Looks like Mr. Keegan is working his way back to the microphone.
Madam Chair, Representative, yeah, great question, and the facility is totally contained. So I made the analogy about the stomach. The stomach stays closed essentially, and they collect all the gas off of it. So there is no flare on this facility, and there is no off-gassing of that. All of that natural gas is collected and sent to that round vessel that you see, or that dome-shaped thing on there, on the diagram there.
Great. Representative Pratt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a couple more questions, if I may.
Sure.
One is, in the handout, it talks about the potential mitigation solution to PFAS, which I've heard about as well. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Because that sounds like a really potentially interesting side benefit to the approach.
Mr. Keegan?
Absolutely, Madam Chair, Representative. Yeah, the solids that come out of the digester go to a biochar process, which is essentially high temperature with no oxygen, right, or very little oxygen. If you had oxygen, you'd have fire and you'd make ash, but when you don't have oxygen, you make biochar, which is essentially just charcoal that's left. That high temperature and that residence time destroys PFAS, and so there is the opportunity to destroy any PFAS that is in the digestate coming out of the digester, but it's important to note that this facility doesn't generate any PFAS. This is just a receiver of PFAS that might be in our food waste. So we're just accepting food waste to the extent that we all have PFAS in our food waste from packaging or something. Any of that came through the facility would be have an opportunity to be treated with that biochar process because of the temperature.
Representative Pratt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's a really interesting side benefit. Last thing is, I do really appreciate the hierarchy. I think these are great solutions. They can turn into maybe less great if you wind up having a situation where you're trying to incent more food waste. So how, because obviously the number one thing you want to do is have less of it. So how are you balancing this kind of a thing where there's going to be more incentive to, because you're going to generate some funds from it, with staying true to the hierarchy?
Mr. Keegan? Or Commissioner Myron?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Reinhardt, I'm sure will want to respond to this as well. But Representative, we at both counties invest significantly in what's called our joint activities budget, and that is really an educational arm of the work that we do. You know, to go back to the education component that was raised earlier in the question, and you know, how do we instruct, let people know that, you know, they need to reduce the waste that exists and the cost associated with that. And so a lot of the work that the recycling and energy facility does is through those joint activities and just trying to educate and inform the public about the cost of waste and how to avoid that. And that certainly avoidance is, you know, the top area of avoiding waste and going towards zero waste is part of the hierarchy and the goal that we have as both counties in their joint work with the Recycling and Energy Board.
Yeah, and to kind of add on to that, at DEMCON, we're also very supportive of the waste hierarchy. And if you just look at, you know, round numbers, when you talked about capacity and how do you know that we're lacking infrastructure for processing even a fraction of the food waste that we have, right? The metro area might have 2 million tons roughly of MSW. If 20% of that is food waste, that's 400,000 tons of food waste. This facility is 75,000 tons. So we are lacking composting infrastructure. We're lacking anaerobic digester and renewable energy infrastructure. There is a lot of room to still move higher up that hierarchy and divert. This is to try to capture some of the stuff that is in the MSW or in the garbage still.
And it looks like Representative Hollins had a response as well.
I just wanted to add on to everything that they've said, which is obviously, right, a third of the waste stream is organics. And the reality, that's why we had the amendment that we had, expanding it to counties outside of the metro area, because there has been interest from some of the other counties about being included in this process. So to my mind, we're not just looking at waste from Ramsey and Washington County, but potentially like being able to take organic waste from other counties that don't have this facility as well and using that. So I think it'd be, what an amazing, what an amazing problem to have, that we need to create. If we get to the point where we need to create more organic waste for this to be profitable, that would be a fantastic problem. I don't foresee that happening, but I appreciate the question, Representative Kraft.
Anything else, Representative
Good,
Kraft?
thank you.
Hemmingson Jaeger, Representative Hemmingson Jaeger.
Thank you. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for being here today. As someone who gets the privilege to represent both Ramsey and Washington counties, I'm just really excited to kind of see this innovative, forward-thinking approach. I also really appreciate the collaboration and extending it to outside of these two counties. And I'll just say I've been talking with the Woodbury Commissioner, Michelle Clausen, and really excited about the pilot program expanding to Woodbury. So just thank you for all of your work.
And last question, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
What?
Second to last. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, why wouldn't you just turn it into compost? Why this other stuff? Why the char? Why the RNG?
Yeah, so
Mr. Keegan?
Madam Chair, Representative, composting is great. There's reasons to compost, and there's plenty of food waste, as we mentioned, to compost. The reason someone would do anaerobic digestion is you produce renewable natural gas. So both processes can produce a product. From composting, you can produce compost. From anaerobic digestion, you can produce biochar, that's the solids. But the additional benefit of anaerobic digestion is the production of renewable natural gas. But that does not mean that there won't also be composting. In fact, a project partner on this with us was Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community. And they were a proposer because we're going to work jointly with them on feedstocks and on operations, and then also looking at incorporating the biochar into their compost products. So this will be in synergy with composting and not competing with composting.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just for members of the committee, and certainly, I think it's all of ours dream and goal that we like the idea of turning trash into energy. Just environmentally, we all support that, but you take a look at this. We've got $100 million capital cost. We have 20-year operation costs of $155 million. So that's a commitment of $250 million, and the facility will produce 170,000 MMBTUs, which works out to about $400,000 worth of natural gas a year for a $255 million commitment. Now, I understand there's other ancillary benefits that come from that beyond just the energy produced, but that's some extraordinarily expensive natural gas, members. Thank you.
Representative Rarick.
Yeah, he actually asked a couple things I was going to ask, so I won't ask those things, which was, they talked about how expensive this was, and I don't know if we got a number exactly, is compared to natural gas, what's renewable natural gas from this, what is the cost difference? And I think Representative Garofalo kind of just did the math for us. I don't know if they have an actual number, but I'll let them look at that. I also wanted to know what happens when you have in the waste stream, it's mixed refuse that gets into the organics, which happens, I'm sure, all the time because people are not very careful. They're not careful with recycling. They're not careful with really anything. So what do you do when you get it with mixed waste?
Commissioner Myron.
Madam Chair, if I may respond, Representative Rarick, our agreement with DEMCON and the delivery of the food scraps that we deliver has a certain standard that has to be met. And our program uses compostable bags. The food scraps are placed within those compostable bags. And we have to meet those standards to be in compliance with the agreement that we have with DEMCON. So that's our responsibility. We take that seriously. The waste is contained in compostable bags so that we can sort them at the facility and at our other sites, and then deliver them to DEMCON under the conditions that I just described.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nope, I get that. I have little green compostable bags at my house, and I fill them up with my scraps, and I throw them in my garden, and I make new gardens every year. I get that part. My question is, when you have some consumer that just throws whatever in that bag and it's not actually organics, then what happens at the facility site? Because once it's in the little bag, it's in the little bag, and I'm sure you're going to get things that shouldn't be in there.
Mr. Keegan.
Madam Chair, Representative, great question. That is one of the other benefits of anaerobic digestion is it's a little more tolerant of some of that other contamination that might get put in there, because you're exactly right. They're not going to do a perfect job. I think first and foremost, we have a very robust education program at DEMCON, and so does RNE, and we're out educating the community to do the best job they can. Beyond that, you are going to see some contamination in there, and the reason we have the ability to manage that more so than composting is because of that biochar process, and it can turn some of that contamination into biochar. That said, I always use the adage, garbage in, garbage out. We can't have just any kind of contamination in the organics. We need to work really hard on having high quality organics, but if somebody has a plastic bottle top or something in there, we can handle it through our process, whereas with composting, you're gonna see that in your compost. So there is the ability to handle some of that, but we will be working very diligently to minimize any contamination in there. And
Follow up. Oh, it looks like Commissioner Reinhardt would like to comment as well.
I guess the other thing is, because this is something, it's for food scraps and it goes into the garbage, there's really no incentive to put something in there that you wouldn't put into, I mean, if it's garbage, why wouldn't you put it into your garbage? But somebody will still probably do something and not realize what it is or whatever. But we also have testing that is done, because we can't go over, when we talk about the specifications, we can't go over a certain percentage of contaminants. And so there is testing that is done to know, and it's done randomly, I believe. I'm not an expert on the testing of it, but I do know that because we have that standard we have to meet, we have to know that it doesn't go beyond that, or it can't be accepted there. So there's testing that goes into that as well.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you. Last question. So you talked about the high temperatures destroying the PFAS, and I believe it's 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit is the level at which it's destroyed, because I had some conversations with the waste to energy facilities, and so Xcel Energy was just doing some testing. They spent quite a bit of money to test PFAS, and they were very excited because the incineration process actually destroys PFAS. So is that correct, that at about 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit, that's the magic number of when you're beginning to destroy PFAS, and that's just like the system with the waste to energy, it's also destroying PFAS? Because that's what Xcel Energy had told me about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago now.
Mr. Keegan.
Madam Chair, Representative, you've done your homework on PFAS, so that's good. It's a hot topic that everyone's talking about. I am not an expert on exactly the temperature, or I can't speak to that, but I can tell you that our temperature is 1,400 degrees and has a residence time that is sufficient to destroy PFAS. So apologize, I can't be a little bit more informed on the waste energy side of things, but that's on our technology. And Madam Chair, at some point I need to make a clarification on a comment earlier. Is this appropriate time?
Sure, go ahead.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, I wanted to, or Commissioner, I'm sorry.
Don't demote me.
Representative.
Oh.
All right, in full disclosure, I never do this.
Yeah.
So
You're doing
you got me
great.
nervous, all right? Representative, my apologies. Just speaking to the financial aspect and the kind of the math, the back of the envelope math we were doing, this project is fully economically viable once we get the 30% tax credit from the federal government as part of the Inflation Reduction Act and $35 million in grant money. There's no continual subsidies needed. We're looking under a lot of different rocks for that money, because that's a big amount, right? And we're looking everywhere we can. We're trying to get as much help as we can to get there. But once we get that, there's no additional subsidies. And when you look at the cost per MMBTU of gas, kind of getting down to what does this cost for gas and is it all worth it type math, I was working with folks from CenterPoint, and we did some calculations earlier, and it's essentially around $15 to $20 per MMBTU on a 20-year life of the project. That's taking $100 million and taking 170,000 MMBTU per year over 20 years and dividing that out. I'm not able to do that in my head right now, but we did it earlier, and it was around $15 or $20 per MMBTU.
Next, we had actually two more last blasts. Representative Ream.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Hollins, for bringing this forward. I, too, love composting, so this is a fun topic. But I do have a question about I don't know how to say it, the heat treatment process, the pyrolysis. What energy are you using to create that high 1,200 degree Fahrenheit temperature? Are you using fossil fuels or are you using renewable energy? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Mr. Keegan.
Absolutely, Madam Chair, Representative. The pyrolysis unit or gasification unit that makes the biochar, I like to call it a biochar process, it has basically the initial startup, if you were to start it up cold right now, would use natural gas to just start it, but then it is self-sustaining. So it stays running and it runs off its own. It produces enough what they call syngas. It's the gas that's driven off of the digestate that's in there. That is what fuels the heat back into it. So it's self-sustaining. So it doesn't need any other natural gas or fossil natural gas or renewable natural gas after startup. Now, once a year, you might shut this down for maintenance, clean it out, and then you would have to start it up again. But just that startup period, which is a matter of hours. Otherwise, it's self-sustaining with the gas that's produced that comes off of the digestate in the process.
Any follow-up, Representative Ream? Last question, Representative Hornstein. He
Thank
started
you
us out
for
and he's
being-
finishing us out.
Thank you for being patient, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just have to sort of push back a little on all this cheerleading for garbage incineration. I mean, you know, and I am pulling a Representative Rarick here because she's very good at doing this. In the midst of the debate, she looks up studies, you know, on the spot just to sort of refute things.
I knew that before I came in.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
okay, good. Well, you know, there are many studies that show that incineration, in fact, may spread, not break down PFAS, including one in New York State a few years ago. And so I just want to remind folks it's also an expensive way to deal with waste management. We have the ash that has to be landfilled. Half of the waste stream, I think, can be recycled. So, you know, I just a little slowing down on the cheerleading here. I think we do have to focus on organics, composting, which we in the legislature actually raised in the overall waste hierarchy. And so if we can focus on that, do it in a way that Representative Kraft mentioned. There are many ways to do anaerobic digestion, some more environmentally responsible than others. But I just do want to say, Madam Chair, this is a good idea, and I support it, and I hope we can help you here at the legislature.
Thank you, Representative Hornstein. And I think we're going to go to Representative Hollins for closing remark. Commissioner Reinhardt, it looks like you're really wanting
I'm
to make...
sorry, I
Yes,
just...
you go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Hornstein. This is not an incinerator, it's actually... No. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everyone.
Thank you for that clarification. Any closing remarks, Representative Hollins?
Thank you for the conversation. Thank you, committee and chair, for hearing the bill. Thank you to the testifiers that handled all of the technical stuff that I didn't have to do. I appreciate that, and I hope that we can earn your support. Thank you.
Representative Hollins renews her motion that House File 4938 be laid over. The bill is laid over. And now we're going to turn the gavel over to Vice Chair Kraft while I make my way. Oh, no, that would have been all of my time.
All right. Chair Acomb, do you want to move your bill?
Yes, I move House File 4759 be laid over for possible inclusion.
Okay, Representative Acomb moves House File 4759 be laid over for possible inclusion. I think you have an author's amendment as well.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move the A2 to get the bill in the shape I would like to discuss it in.
Okay, Rep. Acomb moves the A2. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The amendment is adopted. Chair Acomb, to your bill.
Great. Well, it's hard to be the last bill before break, so I apologize, and we'll move through this as quickly as we can. But thank you for the opportunity to discuss House File 4759. And we've heard many times in committee that 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings. Last year, we passed the 100% clean energy bill, which addresses electricity going to those buildings, and now it's time we explore options that address emissions that come from heating those buildings. Geothermal is one way to do that. A geothermal system is a heating or cooling system that utilizes the earth as a heat source to obtain heat in the winter or as a heat sink to discharge heat for cooling in the summer. Geothermal systems simply take advantage of the relatively constant temperature within the earth and have the potential for significant savings in energy costs and for reducing reliance on fossil fuels. When we link multiple buildings together to form a network or district geothermal, the systems can increase efficiency, which is always a good thing. What House File 4759 intends to do is encourage interested cities and counties to think about the long-term benefits and consider whether geothermal for heating and cooling within their communities makes sense for them. This bill will give decision makers important information on such topics as the heating and cooling demand for the project, evaluate the equipment needs, analyze the geologic conditions, and a financial analysis of the project. With that, Mr. Chair, I have, there are several handouts in the packets. Please take a look at those, and there are several testifiers that are with us today.
Thank you. I see first testifier we have is Willie Miley. Great. Mr. Miley, when you make it up to the desk there, if you would introduce yourself, state your name for the record, and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Willie Miley. I'm the regulatory director at Darcy Solutions. We're a geothermal company based in New Brighton, Minnesota, and we're proud to say that our company grew out of technology that was initially developed at the University of Minnesota. Darcy Solutions created an innovative geothermal system that employs groundwater as the thermal source to achieve significant efficiency gains. Our systems do not consume groundwater, but we simply flow it through an in-well heat exchanger that we designed to tap into the vast thermal energy in aquifers. We support this bill because it will help accelerate the widespread adoption of geothermal heating and cooling across Minnesota. This geothermal energy system planning grant program will enable installation of more clean energy HVAC systems in our local government buildings, which will help make progress on the Minnesota Minnesota Climate Action Framework goals. Many local government units in Minnesota have energy efficiency and decarbonization targets. Counties, cities, and towns across Minnesota manage numerous types of buildings that have different heating and cooling needs. But they all deal with the same issue that building HVAC consumes a lot of energy and associated costs. Geothermal is the most efficient thermal energy source available for heating and cooling, so it's a great option for local governments to utilize to achieve their energy reduction goals. However, local government staff are typically not very familiar with geothermal systems or evaluating options for renewable energy HVAC. Therefore, this bill benefits local government units by supporting the planning costs associated with geothermal systems so that LGU staff better understand the technology and can determine if it's the right HVAC option for their facilities. In addition, the project planning activities that this bill supports are typically costs that are taken out of the total cost of the final geothermal system. Thank you for your time today, and thank you to the bill author, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I please urge you to advance this bill.
Okay, next we have Joe Dammel from Fresh Energy. We'll take questions at the end of the testimony. Welcome to committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Great. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Joe Dammel. I'm the Managing Director of Buildings at Fresh Energy. Fresh Energy is a nonpartisan nonprofit organization based here in Minnesota. And for the past 30 years, we've been advocating for policies to achieve an equitable carbon neutral economy. We appreciate the opportunity to testify today on House File 4759. I want to thank Chair Acomb for authoring the bill, and really appreciate that. This bill establishes a planning grant program to assist communities in exploring the feasibility of network geothermal systems to heat and cool buildings. Network geothermal systems, sometimes called thermal energy networks or district geothermal systems, can be a critical tool to decarbonize Minnesota's building sector. These systems utilize heat energy stored in the ground and can share energy between buildings and users to reach efficiencies of upwards of 500 to 600%. Deployment of these systems at scale could provide affordable, reliable energy to communities across Minnesota. Deployment at scale would also provide family-sustaining jobs and reduce the burden on the energy system overall. Today, we are in the early days of deployment of network geothermal systems, and communities need financial support to be able to perform the pre-development work necessary to ensure that these systems would be a good fit for their community. In addition, work funded by this bill would help communities to be better prepared to access the unprecedented amount of federal dollars available for installation of the actual system. For these reasons, I support you to urge you to support House File 4759 as amended, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, we have Tina Monson from City of Arden Hills. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kraft and members of the committee. My name is Tina Munson, and I'm here in my official capacity as a City Council member with the City of Arden Hills. In full disclosure, I also sit on the Clean Energy Economy Minnesota Board of Directors, and I have worked for over a decade at National Grid Renewables as a renewable energy developer. National Grid Renewables is an energy developer, but also owner-operator. I'm here today to support House File 4759. And to keep it quite simple, small cities like Arden Hills run really tight budgets, and doing anything outside of the norm can either be high risk or virtually impossible. $150,000 is a lot of money for our small cities, and having that funding puts the feasibility of geothermal options within reach. Now, Arden Hills might be a small city, but we're doing really big things on the energy front. The City of Arden Hills, together with Ramsey County, are redeveloping the former TCAP site, also known as Rice Creek Commons, into a multi-use, walkable, and sustainable community. We have a tremendous opportunity to take advantage of certain unique geothermal characteristics on site, and funding these feasibility studies are key to our overall vision of an all-electric community. Like I said, big things. We're doing big things there. Rice Creek Commons has another characteristic we'd like to take advantage of. It has no infrastructure on site. It's a clean site. And so we know that having a clean site with a district geothermal facility significantly reduces the capital costs of installing it, because once you're putting in the roads and other utilities, you put in your geothermal piping at the same time. So we'd really like to take advantage of that. This bill will open doors for government bodies to consider geothermal who otherwise wouldn't. But it also opens doors for small cities who will certainly not be able to do it otherwise. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and happy to take any questions as they come up.
Great. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to testify? Seeing none, we'll move to questions and member discussion. We have Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Madam Chair, in your bill on line 2.19, I'll give you a second to get there. It talks about so that's in the establishment part, and it talks about that it has to be economically feasible. And I'm wondering if you or your testifiers know the price difference between a traditional HVAC system and a geothermal system for a large structure like this, like the plan that she was just talking about. So, yeah, the Rice Creek Commons. Is there anyone that has any numbers as to the comparison of cost?
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Rarick, I think that you bring up a good question, and I think that ultimately the analysis, and maybe one of if any of our testifiers have any information, please make your way. My response to that would be the analysis would look at the cost of what it would take to implement geothermal, and it would also likely look at the cost of alternatives. But so in essence, what the payback time would be, like how long of an investment would it take to balance the sheet? And I think that as we are looking at new technologies like this and normalizing it, having local leaders who are willing to start this trend, I think that other cities will want to be able to make that comparison as well.
Ms. Monson.
Yeah. Thank you, Vice Chair and Commissioner. I just want to echo that because what we're trying to do on our feasibility is, quite frankly, understand the advantages and potentially disadvantages of a district geothermal system on our site, and will that help us meet our energy goals or not? And basically removing the friction for us to be able to even study that to see if it is economic or not is incredibly important for small cities.
Mr. Wiley, yeah, come on up.
Mr. Miley, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative. From a Darcy Solutions perspective, our systems typically cost between $500,000 and $2 million. And the upfront costs are more than a traditional HVAC system, but with the 30% tax incentive now in the Inflation Reduction Act, another tax and depreciation analysis, differentiation between the two different projects, our systems are very cost competitive with traditional HVAC, and oftentimes they're even cheaper. And our payback time period for our systems are typically 5 years or less.
Madam Chair.
And I just wanted to also follow up, and natural gas prices continue to go up. So this would prevent those costs down the road, and so that's being figured into the analysis as well.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. So if the geothermal system is somewhere between $500,000 and $2 million, then in the same like manner, what would be a traditional HVAC system that's natural gas or something else that's equally traditional?
Yeah, so
Mr. Miley.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Representative. I mean, the costs are variable depending on the project size, the building size and configuration. That's why our typical cost is between $500,000 for a small project to $2 million for a larger project. So I do have one analysis that we often discuss is for a project that's a $4.5 million system, $4.5 million system for a traditional system. We have a comparable system for $6.4 million. But then when you go through the Inflation Reduction Act, tax incentive, and some accounting depreciation on that, the total net cost for the traditional HVAC system is $3.46 million, and for our system, it's $2.32 million.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I understand that the taxpayer, but federal taxpayer is also going to be paying for this, and so I prefer to compare apples to apples. I understand that the federal government we are also paying into that as well. So the taxpayer is who I'm concerned about, and I just find this interesting that the economic feasibility is in the bill, which of course one would think that would be important to do. We're spending up to $150,000 per project and not actually putting any in, and now I understand why, because it's $500,000 to $2 million, and you had actually given an example of even higher than that, $6.4 million to put in a geothermal system. So that's a lot of money. Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, I have a question for Madam Chair. One more, and then I will let somebody else ask some questions. So on line 2.12 to 2.13, you have third-party, contractors, third-party contractors, and I'm just wondering who that might be.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative. So the commissioner, so this is going to be under the Department of Commerce, and the commissioner can work with contractors to conduct some or all of the program's operations. So I think Mr. Kelly may be here. I don't know if he can refer to that or not, but I think sometimes when I know with a lot of the programs that they're standing up now, they're using external contractors to help with some of the IT work or setting up some of the application process. I think that the department uses a lot of external contractors to help with establishing program requirements.
Representative Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, Madam Chair, but that's not what it says. The language talks about it could be all of the program's operations. The commissioner may conduct or contract with a third party to conduct some or all of the program's operations, and that's under the application process. So my question is, why is the agency not doing that? And this is the whole thing. This is allowing all of the program's operations to be stood up by a third party. And the other question is, who might that be? So I don't know if the department is here, but that seems like an awfully big outsourcing.
I see Mr. Kelly coming down. Welcome back to the committee. Please state your name and introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chair and members. John Kelly, Director of Government Affairs for the Department of Commerce. So I think the department could contract that out to run the program. I think that there are instances where we work with contractors or other organizations to do programs. But I think they're also in the bill, we say that any contractor working on this, or at least a version of the bill that I was looking at, that they have experience doing geothermal grants, doing geothermal work. So I can definitely follow up, but I think that, that just gives us the flexibility. I don't know that we have folks at Commerce that are experts in geothermal technology, and I think we would want to work with folks that do have that.
Representative Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That actually begs another question. How do you define who's got experience? Does that mean they've installed one, or they read a book, or what does that mean exactly?
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Chair and Representative Eric. I think that's a great question. I'm happy to follow up offline. I don't have an answer for that at this time.
Representative Eric?
One final comment then, Mr. Chair. I don't think this bill is ready. I think there's too many outstanding questions. You're spending $150,000 per pop, and you're not putting a single bit of geothermal in. You're just seeing if maybe it could possibly work, but it's incredibly expensive to do this. So I don't think this bill's ready, Mr. Chair.
Representative Ream?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative Acomb, for bringing this forward. So I'm really excited about this idea of geothermal energy, and I live in a district where we have one of the largest public buildings that is powered by geothermal energy, the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum. Their visitor center, I think, was built in 2005, and does a great job heating and cooling the building there. And I know Carleton College has been successful in using geothermal energy. And I've been to a resort up on the North Shore where they use geothermal energy. And so I know, we can do this in Minnesota. My question, though, is about the water. And I know someone had mentioned brown water. And I guess I have questions about the aquifer and, how we will make sure that we're protecting our water resources and, what that means for our aquifers. If someone could help me understand that better, I would appreciate that.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Ream. I think the protection of the groundwater and aquifers is really important, and all of geothermal projects are permitted and put through the Minnesota Department of Health, and they have some pretty stringent requirements around checking and looking at different types of technologies. And so I've actually been working with stakeholders and the department to help allow more geothermal using different types of geothermal technologies. But so they oversee it and do a good job, because what their jurisdiction is our drinking water and protecting our drinking water. A lot of the systems, most of the systems are closed loop, and so they are they have liquid in the pipes, but they are not engaging directly with the groundwater. And so there's a variety of different types of geothermal, and I also am not an expert on it, just a super supporter of it. And I will just say that this bill came out of a city who was looking to do this when they were working on their streets. And so it was the city of Crookston, Minnesota, who wanted to implement geothermal, and were working with MPCA and some organizations around some sustainability goals and some projects. And they weren't able to make the geothermal part work because they didn't have that background information to be able to kind of set the stage for it. So this is to ensure that when cities do get into that situation or are looking for ways to improve heating and cooling in their cities or decarbonize, that they can, they have the information and are ready to go down that path.
Representative Ream, you good?
Just one more question. So the brown water that they're talking about, is that, and maybe someone else can clarify, but is that something that is inserted in, or is it coming from the earth, or what exactly is that brown water that has been mentioned?
Madam Chair?
We're going to have Mr.
Miley.
Mr. Miley come on back down, the geothermal expert.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Representative. Well, in our system, we we pull the heat or dump heat back into the groundwater. We don't withdraw groundwater from our geothermal wells. We just run it through a heat exchanger that's down in a water well in the aquifer. And the groundwater is extracted into the heat exchanger and re-injected back into the same aquifer or geologic formation. So it doesn't disturb the groundwater besides moving it through the heat exchanger. And as Chair Acomb mentioned, that the MDH closely regulates it. We're working through a rulemaking process now that is associated with new well code additions that came in through the legislative session last year that are specific to our technology also.
Representative Garofalo?
I just, actually, I don't know the answer to this question. It's usually like, how deep do you guys go when you don't, I mean, you don't go down into the aquifer, do you?
Mr. Miley?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair and Representative. Yeah, our systems we can go in a superficial aquifer, which is in like sand and gravel material before you get to bedrock, or we go down bedrock aquifers commonly also.
And then we've heard about, Mr. Chairman and the testifier, so we've heard in this committee before about this, directly air pumps working at certain temperatures. At what point do you need a secondary, in terms of cold weather, at what point do you need a secondary energy source for heating?
Mr. Miley?
And if there's not an exact temperature, just what's the range? Because we've gotten different answers from different people this year.
Mr. Miley?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Representative. I'm not an expert on the engineering of the HVAC systems. I'm work on the regulatory issues, and I'm also a geologist, so I do the underground stuff. But so yeah, I don't think I can give you a great answer, but I can get back to you.
That's cool. And then just a comment, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chair, I'd never like to provide instant fact-checking, but natural gas prices are not going up, Madam Chair. They're going down. In fact, natural gas prices are cheaper today than when I was first elected, and that's a long time ago. So,
Madam Chair.
I would only say that you have to keep buying natural gas. You don't have to keep buying geothermal. You have to maintain the system, much like you would for a traditional system, but you're no longer having to buy natural gas. So the cost is greater.
Mr. Chairman and Madam Chair, not to debate you, but you got to use electricity for it. You got to buy electricity. It's not like it's self-propelled. And natural gas prices are not going up. So but have a nice recess. I'm sorry, I didn't want to end on a negative.
Just one brief comment on the geothermal systems. I don't believe there's much of a backup that's needed because the temperature in the aquifer is constant. So you can always be using it either to draw heat from or to draw cooling from, regardless of the temperature above ground. With that, the final question is Representative Hollins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Chair. This is less of a question than a comment, which is, when I'm hearing from my community as the city of St. Paul looks to use geothermal going forward, one of the #1 things that has come up is the fact that when we do individual projects, there's really there's some discontent around that just because of how long it takes, how intensive it is, and then really the fact that individuals who have the means to do individual projects are the ones who get to benefit from this. And realistically, this is also lower energy costs, right? And so the people in my community who are lower income don't get to benefit from lower energy costs. And so I really appreciate you bringing this language, because this is something that I'm really hoping that municipalities and counties will be able to create a plan that is a long-term plan. I see this as the same way that we see lead pipe removal. Like, if we go one by one and each person has to check on the website like, oh, do I have lead in my connecting pipes? Like, that's such a pain. If you're gonna tear up a street, let's just tear up the whole street, put it in, and then everybody has the same things. And so I really thank you for bringing this, because I do think there needs to be planning around this. And I think most municipalities would agree with you.
Closing comments, Madam Chair.
I couldn't agree with you more. And with that, I renew that House File 4759 be laid over.
Chair Acomb moves that House File 4759 be laid over, and with that, it is laid over, and we are adjourned. Have a great break, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.